I'm telling Canada's on the come up, bro.
Yeah,
I think so, at least.
We definitely got like the MMA scene's kind of a little weak right now, just as far as like events and stuff going on. Like
because what BTC is like the biggest thing right now, or no?
Well, Unified, people would probably say Unified is just because it's on Fight Pass, and then you got BFL on Fight Pass. But the thing is with BFL is like no disrespect to them, but like
hold up, sorry, I know this is getting super good. Are we running already? Okay, good. Okay, no, keep.
Okay.
Yo!
Nerds.
Yeah, like no disrespect to BFL, but like they just recycle a lot of the same local guys, right?
Yeah.
So it's like that's kind of, in my opinion, that's not really what people want to see. That's not really what, like, sure, it might sell tickets, you know what I mean? But how many times are you going to show up to the same venue to watch the same guy fight? How many times a year you want to watch that? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not a lot of people.
Yo, for those who don't know, like, what is BFL? Like, you want to explain?
Oh, so it'd be like Battlefield Fight League. That would be the name. They're like an out west based, strictly like Vancouver based promotion. You got Samurai MMA in Montreal. That would be the big Montreal promotion. BTC fights in Ontario. Unified's been primarily Ontario based. Honestly, they used to be more just Alberta. Now they come to they're coming to Rebel tomorrow or Friday. So they got a fight there. And then there's a couple other smaller shows out west, but primarily those would be like the bigger name shows that consistently run fights. You got Fight League Atlantic, but that's kind of like more local guys again, you know what I mean? So it's there's promotions out there. It's just money's like tight, like when it comes to promoting events, especially in Ontario. The commission fee is like, you're looking like, if somebody really wants to run like a real show, it's like over $100,000, you know what I mean? So you got to think about every fight. Like if I'm flying a guy in, you know what I mean, I got to pay flights, hotel, this, that, and then I got to pay his win, his show, like potentially his win and his show, you know? But so it's like there's not a lot of room for error when it comes to Ontario show. When you make money, you make a little money, but when you lose money, you're losing a lot of money. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's unfortunate for MMA fighters. A good thing that's coming though in 2025 is they're going to be able to, from what I know, run pro-am events. Okay. So that'll save the promoters a lot of money and still get them to sell tickets, because they can just get all the local amateurs on the undercards, sell a bunch of tickets, and then only have to pay like 4 or 5 guys professional fights, you know what I mean?
Okay, so it's a little more structured.
Yeah.
So even too, a lot of people, you guys don't know who we have here, but we got TJ the Truth Laramie.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
TJ, thank you so much for coming on the show. Like, I know you're a busy guy, you're a barber, fighting, prepping up for like your next fight. Could you let them know a little bit more about yourself?
Yeah, so I'm 26 years old, born and raised Windsor, Ontario. I used to fight. I have fought in the UFC. I won first Canadian ever to win on Contender Series and get a contract on Contender Series. So yeah, just got cut from the UFC in 2022 after my last UFC fight, on a 2-win streak since then. And just trying to get back to a big promotion at the moment. Hopefully fighting mid-November. We'll see. But I'd like to get in couple more fights this year. So
100%.
So bro, like, tell us about how you got into fighting in the first place. Like, how young were you and like what made you want to fight?
So pretty much I was always been like a little bit athletic growing up, you know, like doing like every school sport pretty much I could do for the most part, and then just super competitive, like, you know, just, you know, some people got it, some people don't when it comes to like, you know, you hate to lose, you know, that kind of thing. A lot of people are like this. So, but I was like always a fat kid, like growing up, like always fat. So pretty much it all started, like, I just started with working out, like just trying to lose weight at like a young age, like maybe 11, 12 years old. And then my dad introduced me to fighting as kind of like, fighting as like just a sport, like to watch, you know? So I was like super into it as a fan at first, but then again, competitive nature, I went and tried out a class, and it was just like all history from there pretty much. I was just hooked, especially it was the first sport I ever played that was like individual. And it was just like all your progress is solely based on like what you do. So it's the most real sport in my opinion when it comes to stuff like that, because although you got a team, when you're in there, it's all you. You know, when you're cutting weight, it's all you. You know what I mean? When you're dieting, it's all you, right? So all the hard parts are on you. That's it, right? So win, lose, draw, it's all about you, man. So that's why I think really drew me to fighting.
And what was the first class you took, like when you started?
Actually, like despite like how I fight now, I started with striking. So I started with a kickboxing class, and then but I took like a liking to grappling like pretty soon after. Like I think I did my first jiu-jitsu tournament without really going to a jiu-jitsu school. I was just like doing moves off like YouTube with my brother and stuff like that. And then just went and hopped in a tournament when we were kids, and then that was it.
And what was the result of that tournament?
I got silver and third in different divisions.
Just off YouTube University.
Yeah, pretty much just YouTube, man, and just like trying to like asking people at the gym like, hey, you want to like, you know, roll or whatever, you know. So that was pretty much it. But yeah, it was that would have been my first and ever sort of competition experience, would have been jiu-jitsu. Yeah.
And like it was the moment like you took that class, you kind of felt that fire, like you're like, okay, this is something I want to do.
It was just like addicting, you know what I mean? Because it's like when, I don't know, the way I look at it is like when I go into a class like this, I'm like, damn, like that guy kind of got my ass, you know what I mean? Like he kind of beat me up today. So I'm like, I need to come back and get better so I can beat him up. You know, that's kind of like my mindset. So that's pretty much just, you know, that's what hooked me in. It was like instantly you're given a goal. You're comparing yourself to everybody else in the room, especially being such like a testosterone like dominant sport, you know what I mean, where it's like, okay, you know, I gotta prove myself, I can't let this guy beat me up, you know. I think that just comes to people naturally, you know what I mean. So I think that's really what like drove me instantly to it, you know.
Even too earlier you had mentioned like not wanting to lose, like being like that person that doesn't like to lose. Do you think that's very efficient in the UFC world or like the MMA world?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like it's weird because it's like so after I got cut from the UFC, I really focused on just like doing jiu-jitsu competitions, because pre turning pro in MMA, I was really competitive. Like as an amateur, I was like competing at least twice a month, whether it was jiu-jitsu tournament or a kickboxing match or something, you know. And but as soon as I went pro MMA, I kind of went away from all that, and it was just the activity overall slowed down for me, which honestly I felt like affected my like mental game, my performance, just because you're not as comfortable in there. And so you're not as comfortable in there. And then so once I got cut from the UFC, I really focused on I was competing like again a couple times a month again, you know, just jiu-jitsu. But regardless, when you get to compete in a combat sport, any sort of competition is beneficial in that sense. So did a bunch of jiu-jitsu, and then it was weird because it was like it taught me to be almost how to lose a little bit, where it was like not like, okay, get comfortable losing, but it was like going out there to take risks, you know what I mean? Because the way I looked at I didn't look at jiu-jitsu the same way I looked at professional fighting. It's like a professional fight record is forever, you know, where it's like jiu-jitsu, it's like I could show up, get smoked in a jiu-jitsu match, and nobody's gonna remember it tomorrow, you know. So it's different like that. So it kind of got me comfortable with like just letting it all hang out whenever I go compete, you know.
Even too, you talk about UFC, like you're there, like you did that. So like take us back like to the beginning, right? Because like that's like the Olympics for a lot of people, right? Like how did that happen? What you have to do? What was that kind of like?
So I mean, it was weird because it like I was talking about how I started training. It was pretty much like when I started training, it was almost like instantly I was training to be the best, you know what I mean? There was no like, oh, you know, I'm just gonna do one fight and I'll be good, you know, like I'll do one tournament, I'll be good. It was like as soon as I started, I was like, I gotta go to the UFC, I gotta be a world champion, you know, like that was instant, like where my head was the whole time. So everything I did as far as training, as far as in my life, was all geared towards, everything just started to center around fighting. So I joined high school wrestling because I knew it would make my MMA better. You know what I mean? I did all these jiu-jitsu tournaments because I knew it would make me a better fighter. You know, I did kickboxing tournaments because I knew it would translate to MMA. So everything I did in my life after starting training was strictly to get better at fighting, you know?
What is it about fighting? Like, I mean, like a lot of people hear this and they're like, oh, the last thing I want to do is like fight somebody like in front of everybody and then like potentially get my ass whooped or like hurt. You know what I mean? Like, what is it about fighting that you think?
So like I was talking to somebody about this pretty recently, because one thing that drives me crazy, right, is like even the most average person thinks like, yo, I could throw down. You know what I mean? So I genuinely think it's like, it has to be some sort of primal instinct in people. Like nobody really wants to admit that someone else could beat their ass. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, nobody wants to admit that, right? Even though there is a skill involved, but people are like I was like in a comment section, which I'm in too much, honestly, arguing with like, people online.
The Twitter fingers.
Yeah. He's like, oh, this guy was just going off about like, oh, well, if my life was on the line, you bet I wouldn't lose. I'm like, it doesn't work like that. Like, you can't just say that and it's going to happen. You know, like if you're fighting somebody who's genuinely skilled, genuinely knows what they're doing, we're not talking like you're fighting some guy you just seen walking on the street, you know, like, but this is what I mean. The primal instinct of everybody for some reason thinks they can fight. I wouldn't go up to someone walking on the street right now and be like, yo, could you play basketball with LeBron James? Everybody would be like, no, there's zero chance. You know what I mean? Unless he's stupid. But like you go there and you'd be like, yo, you show someone a picture of Francis Ngannou, you think you could scrap with this guy? A lot of people would be like, yeah, I think I could take that guy. You know, that's the difference where it comes into the primal instinct of fighting. So I think that's really where you know, that's where it all comes from.
And that's interesting because that is one of the only sports where like, yeah, if you were to walk around and interview people and say, could you play basketball against LeBron? No, he'll kill me. Yeah, but if you say like, show a picture and fight, like they'll probably naturally, I could beat him up. Yeah. Although you don't know shit. Like that's interesting. I never thought about it like that.
And not even talking about when you get a couple drinks in you know?
Oh yeah. Everybody can fight.
Yeah, exactly. Superman. Everybody's Superman at that point. So that's it just like, it just comes out of humans naturally, I think. I really do.
So that's where the primal instinct, even too, you're a featherweight, correct?
Yeah.
So like for you, do you think when people see that, they're like, oh yeah, it doesn't really matter? Like, do you think weight classes people don't consider?
Yeah, I do.
Much?
So the thing is, that's another thing too, you'll always see in comment sections quite often is you'll see people be like, oh, well, you're just small, so whatever, you know what I mean? I'm like, that. I get what you're saying. Trust me, I get what you're saying. But I'm also a small guy who knows how to fight. And you're a guy who, like, I don't think people even realize how tiring this stuff is. Yeah. You know what I mean? Hit the bag for a minute. Like, you can't. You know what I mean? You can't consistently, the average person can't consistently swing on a bag for a minute straight. They wouldn't be able to do that. So that's, it's just a delusion a little bit where it's like, oh, okay, you know, like I've wrestled with my high school buddies here and there, you know, I was able to pin my boy once, you know, like it's just, it's just, they're just delusional in that sense. Right. So, but
very early on, the boys probably knew not to wrestle with you.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like
TJ's probably smashing face.
Yeah. I was like, it's crazy because like, I was pretty quiet, like, especially like grade 9, grade 10, most of grade 11. Like I didn't even have a cell phone really until like grade 11, right? So I was like just after school wrestling, and then after wrestling I would go to the gym and then train again. So that's pretty much what my life was. I was like no friends, no parties. I didn't drink alcohol until like I was like 17 or 18, something like that. And it was just like when I said I was like solely focused on fighting, that was it. Eventually, like I opened up, you know what I mean? It helped me out. I think that was a result of like seeing some success in fighting because I made my pro debut when I was 17. So I was still in grade 12. You know what I mean?
Cool.
So I did my pro debut in Japan when I was still in high school.
What?
So yeah.
Take us through that.
Basically at the time for fighting, it was, there was no amateur MMA in Ontario yet. You know, it was just professional. And then I could do my jiu-jitsu tournaments. I could do some amateur in Michigan, but amateur in Michigan was just professional rules, but you don't get paid. And there's 3-minute rounds. So it was kind of pointless. I was like at the skill level where I was like, okay, might as well just go pro at this point. And then a really cool opportunity came up. There was a show that was being produced at the time on a super channel on Kojiko, like a cable channel. And it was called The Fight Exchange. they'd already had the first season. The first season they went to Brazil. The second season they wanted to go to Japan. And fighting professionally is legal, I think, from 16 on in Japan. Mm-hmm. So I was able to go there, all paid for, do the whole show, and then make my pro debut at 17. So it was really cool. Like a whole paid experience in Japan. Got to see a bunch of my first time traveling like overseas, and it was just an amazing experience overall. And that was pretty much how I made my pro debut.
Took some names too, right?
Yeah. Right. It was just I fought for Pancrase, which is like, if you go through Pancrase's history, they've had over 300 events, I think, at this point. Tons of guys I fought there. Like Boss Rutan was like one of their champions, Ken and Frank Shamrock were champions back then, so it's like, it's a historic MMA organization. I was able to say I got to fight for them,
Even to a big thing is like, you said it, you're the first from Contender Series Canadian to freaking go through that. And also too, you've done so much. How do you feel that it's like kind of evolved from where you were to now?
So honestly, I think MMA is getting way better every year, man. Like everybody, the level of competition is getting so much better. Like I genuinely think, like when I first started watching MMA, the champions were like, well, actually, when I very first started watching MMA, UFC was just about to introduce 135 and 145. So they didn't even have those weight classes yet in the UFC. So when I look back then to I look now, I think fighters are bigger, they're faster, they're stronger, they're way more skilled. You got guys like the 45ers, like you look at Topuria and Volkanovski for that last fight. In the cage, they were both 170, you know what I mean? So it's like, you would never see that back in the day. GSP most likely a 170-pound GOAT, clearly, and possibly one of the MMA GOATs ever. He would most likely in today's MMA be fighting at 155 versus 170, So you see such just a vast difference in that. And then the skill level. Like, I think a guy who's like just breaking into the UFC now could have been a champion like 10 years ago, you know what I mean? Like, I think he would have had the skill 10 years ago to potentially be a champion, you know what I mean? So, it's just every day. That's the cool thing about fighting, is it is relatively new in the grand scheme of things. It's only been, I think UFC's like 1993, something like that.
That's UFC 1.
Yeah, so it's like, it's extremely new, and every day, every year, man, it's just progressing and progressing.
Who's the best UFC fighter in your eyes?
I think it's between Topuria and Makhachev. So,
jeez, now, currently, or we're talking overall?
Oh, I think right now, currently in the UFC right now, I think it's between Topuria and Makhachev. I would have said Volk if he beat Topuria. I would say Volk overall, pound for pound, is probably the best. I think 155 and lower has the most skilled fighters by far.
Yeah, I think it's the most dangerous also, right?
Yeah.
Like this, like Sandhagen, like you have like what Makhachev, like overall, like that whole division, everything like that is just killers.
Yeah, just you look at the whole top 15.
Moicano recently.
Yeah, exactly. I think Moicano was I think he's only 11 or something, something like that. You know what I mean? Where it was like, bro, that's the number 11 guy, And you know what the crazy thing is about Moicano is I don't even think he made the top 10 at 145. And then think about 135. Jose Aldo knocked out Moicano at 145 and he dropped to 135. So it's like, it's those weight classes is like there's so many good guys in those weight classes. So I think anyone who's a champion at 155, 145 should be in the talks for like who's best in MMA.
So I want to ask you even too, what was like the Contender Series when you got called up? They're like, yo, TJ, you're that nice, you're that sick. Okay, come to the Contender Series. Even too, like, how'd that call happen? Like, are you talking to Dana? Is he your manager? Like,
so my coach is my manager. Reno Belcastro is also my manager too. I don't really believe in big management companies in MMA for the most part. So basically what happened was so I'd fought in December of 2019, got my last, I was 11-3 at the time, and on a 3-fight win streak. And then I was like, I kind of knew at that point, especially based on the Canadian MMA scene, like I was next up, and Contender Series, I think this was the 4th season of Contender Series that I was on, but COVID had just hit actually, right before I got called. Yeah. So COVID had just hit. I remember just like I was going through like my daily COVID routine at the time, which would be like go for a drive in the morning and go for a run and then go hit pads at my coach's house. And that was pretty much it. Didn't really have any idea what was going on. And then he just sends me a screenshot of an email from Sean Shelby saying like, oh, Contender Series offer this week, this date. And I was like, all right, hell yeah. Like I already had an idea that like a UFC opportunity or something around that level was coming. But yeah, it was just, I just remember reading that email like on one of my morning drives and I was like, all right, yeah, it's time to go. So I did all that. I did my whole training camp in Vegas for that just because of the COVID. Like it was shut down here, man. So
was that the what's it called, the arena?
It was at the Apex. So all my fights, my Contender Series and both my UFC fights were at the Apex. But yeah, I did my training camp in Vegas just because still like Canada was like back and forth, always like, okay, you can open, you cannot. You know what I mean? You can open, you got to shut down.
That was so annoying.
So yeah, it was with the inconsistencies and stuff, I just had to go to Vegas for like the last 5 weeks and just get that done. And it was like a great training camp. Everything went smooth. And then obviously went in there and won the fight. But Contender Series is cool, man. Just it's weird because so they try to really make it feel like a tryout. They don't announce names in Contender Series. Like when you're actually in the Apex, it's they call every fighter. They call both fighters in. They go ready, fight. Like there's no like music. There's no announcements. And especially during COVID, like you could hear a pin drop in there because other than the commission and the announcers, there was not a single crowd person was allowed in there at the time. So it was like you could hear breathing. It was just a weird experience because I've never been in a fight in my life where it was like you could hear everything going on in the cage just because of a crowd. You know?
Did that change like the way you fought?
Oh, 100%. Like you're thinking more. You're just, it's not a familiar situation. You know, it's very rare, even an amateur, to go to an event where there's not any sort of like white background noise. You know what I mean? So it's 100% different.
Yeah.
What'd you feel from amateur to pro? How big of a jump is that?
So I think early level pro, not much of a jump. I feel like some of the high level amateurs are just like far better than even some of the low level pros. I think some people go pro just, oh, okay, I can make $500, you know what I mean, to fight this guy. They just go pro, or just even to say they're a pro athlete. Because that's the thing with MMA is there's no regulations. Like anyone on the street could go technically sign up for a pro fight.
Okay. Really?
As long as you get the medicals done, everything, you know what I mean? So, I mean, eventually people are going to have to start doing extra tests. If you get knocked out a certain amount of times in a row, the commission will be like, okay, you got to get extra brain scan every time you fight versus every year, you know? So, yeah, I don't really think it was too much of a jump, especially because when I was competing in amateur, I was primarily competing in everybody's individual sport. So it was like, if I was going against a really good jiu-jitsu guy, I was going against the guy who's just jiu-jitsu, you know what I mean? So if I performed at a high level there, I'm pretty confident going into an MMA fight, you know? If I was competing against the best guy in kickboxing at the time, I was confident striking with somebody in MMA. Yeah. So that's how I looked at that.
Yeah. What do you think about like fighters' pay? Like, do you think it's fair? Because like you guys put yourself through like a lot, bro.
Yeah. Fair? No, I don't really honestly think so. I think so it's I don't really know how to like. It sounds like complaining for the most part, but I mean, I think fighter pay should. I think based off one fight a year, you should be able to at least like survive. You know what I mean? It should be above like poverty level income, you know? Because even if you win one fight at the starting contract of 10-10, like that's below poverty. You know what I mean? Like you're not paying rent, you're not getting groceries and stuff. So not to mention you get taxed on that too. So, and then fees, everything. I just think it would honestly, I don't think it would put much of a dent in the UFC. They're like a multi-billion-dollar company at this point. To just give a base level fighter should make like 20 and 20. You know what I mean? It's not really like 40 grand for a win. You know what I mean? Plus there's no pensions. There's no healthcare. You know what I mean? You get healthcare when you fight. So that's a problem though, because you got people who are fighting injured just so they can get the health insurance post fight, you know? Yeah. So yeah, I think there should be more pay. But is it going to happen? No. Like, it's crazy. I just watched that McMahon documentary on Netflix.
I just started that.
And
Same.
like when you look at how Vince McMahon ran the WWE from the beginning, and you look at how the UFC's run, it's like Dana White based the UFC off the WWE business model, where it's like eventually it was like, oh, well, you know, Vince McMahon made the mistake originally. He's like, oh, okay, I got to keep the star when he was talking about Bret Hart. And he's like, I don't need to keep the star. He's like, I can just create a new one. And that's how the UFC does everything. It's like, if Sean O'Malley lost, if Sean O'Malley left the UFC today, nobody would care in 6 months from now. You know what I mean? Francis apparently left behind the biggest contract in UFC history. Nobody cares. The life goes on. You know what I mean? Now everybody's talking about Aspinall, you know? So UFC's designed their business model to where they don't need the athletes. It's people are paying to watch the UFC.
Yeah.
You know?
Like you're replaceable.
Yeah.
Like
exactly.
any other business.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Especially like even like Dana White is talking about getting into a boxing organization now. And running it similar to a UFC business model, which is like, I don't know, man. It's like combat sports is going to get put into like that, because it is obviously sustainable in the sense where it's like, look at how well the UFC is doing from a business standpoint. But
it's been sucking though. Cause if we look at the last couple like main events, like nobody's been happy until guess what, next week or this Saturday.
Yeah.
Everybody's waiting for Poatan to come fight.
Yeah.
Right, because like he's their bread and butter now, but. Or what, Max Holloway and Ilya, which is the following one. Yeah. It's like we have a good streak of like fights coming up, but like everything else the last 3 weeks have kind of sucked.
Especially too, every time they go back to the Apex, you're like, you can feel the energy whenever they're in the Apex. It's just different. They don't even got a live crowd, you know? Like Paris was pretty good just because they had some good like highlight reels and stuff like that.
Denis, Saint Denis.
Yeah.
Bro, him getting crushed by Moicano.
Yeah, I didn't expect that.
No, me either. I thought everyone's saying this is the battle warrior, the God of War.
Yeah.
Trash now.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. Everyone. I honestly thought Moicano was gonna get smoked too, to be honest. But
crushed him.
Yeah, he made it look easy too, which is a crazy part.
Right, and then now it's what Moicano versus Patty we look at next.
I don't even know if you do that because like. That's like a gift for Paddy Pimblett, you know. He's not. I don't even know if he's ranked. I don't think he is. I don't even think he's in the top 15.
Even to what he beat. What's his face? Bobby Green or King Green now.
Yeah.
King Green now.
Yeah.
So even to what I did want to ask, what was the transition from like from Contender Series after you won, you know, first Canadian to like take that jump? So that's a big jump right there. And then what was the transition? How'd that feel?
So honestly, it was really the first time that I felt like as much media pressure, and I wasn't even I was getting a lot of hype based on like had a good story, you know, going into the Contender Series, being the first Canadian to ever win it. Dana White was like promoting me quite a bit, like posting me on his own page, like name dropping me in Sportsnet interviews and stuff like that. So it was like I was getting a lot of attention, but it was different because you get like so many haters too, like at the same time, and it's all bots and shit like that. But it's like, don't even matter. Like how you could get like 1 million good comments, and then you get like one shit comment, and you're like, damn, you know,
it's always like that. Bro.
Yeah, and you're like, you're just thinking about it, you know. But it was just a lot. It was a lot of pressure on me, especially only being 22 at the time. It was the first time I really experienced that. And another thing too that like I'd never really been exposed to was like the gambling aspect of sports, and like how much like people were messaging me as the athlete about it. You know what I mean? I was like, oh, you're on my parlay this weekend. You better not fuck up. Way. You know what I mean? Shit like that. And like any other fighter I talk to, they all get stuff like that. It was just, I think mainly what I'm getting at is like trying to shut that part of everything off was hard for me at the beginning. You know what I mean? Because before I would log on to Instagram, it was just whatever. I'm just like doom scrolling, looking at what I want to look at. Now every time I open up Instagram, I got a comment notification of some idiot talking shit, or you know what I mean, like saying, "Oh, predicting he's gonna lose this fight coming up," and so yeah, you get. It's just adjusting in that sense, which honestly, I still like. I had a really hard time doing at the time. That's why I don't really post on social media as much anymore. I'm not really on there too much because, you come to find out, it was like right hot off the Contender Series, like everybody was like all up in your shit, like, oh yeah, you're the next thing, you're next up, you're this, you're that. And then I lost my UFC debut, and it was, oh, you're a flop, you're this, you're that, you know. So it's like I try not to like, you know, like base my life off social media too much anymore. Although it's like it's a great tool for a lot of things, don't get me wrong, but it's so fake, man.
Yeah,
so
100%.
Fake. Like I see people in real life, I'm like, why do you act like a fucking idiot on social media? Like, bro, you're actually cool to talk to and stuff. And I'm not even talking about like, these are people that like, they do this for like no views. You know what I mean? Like these guys are making themselves look stupid for nothing. I'm like, damn, like you want to be like, do you want to be famous? Like, I don't get like what you're trying to get out of life. Right. Yeah. But I don't know. But honestly, that was like a maturing point for me too, having to deal with all that. So, like, I feel like it made me better in the future.
Yeah. How did you first take that UFC loss?
So it was hard for me, especially again, it was still during COVID. It was like 5 weeks after Contender Series. So it kind of sucked because it was like, I never got to celebrate like getting into the UFC. So it was like, I was like kind of like on a little vacation, like week after Contender Series. And then like 3 days after I'd fought, they'd asked me to fight in like 5 weeks. And I was like, really good matchup. I was really happy with the matchup. And so I was like, yeah, for sure. Then I had I flew right back to Vegas, started training again, and I was training. I had a good strain in my LCL, so I strained my LCL, which isn't like a major injury. It was just like making training hard, especially having such a quick turnaround in between fights. So I think it wasn't the injury that affected the performance of the fight. It was the mental aspect of having the injury and like not being able to train, you know what I mean? I should have just pulled out of the fight, you know, no excuses regardless, but yeah, it was just, so I went right from the highest high of my life to like the lowest.
That's low, crazy.
Like immediately. You know? So,
and it's kind of important to celebrate those moments, right?
Yeah, no, it is, man.
5 weeks seems like nothing, bro.
Yeah. It is nothing. And I didn't even go back to like my hometown after winning Contender Series. I didn't go back to my hometown until after I lost. So it was it sucked in that aspect. You know, I never really got to take it all in, and you know, I don't know if that would have helped or how it would have made me feel, but I'm sure I'll experience it again regardless. But
100%.
It's just, but yeah, that was an unfortunate moment at that time. But yeah, I mean, it's made me into a better like athlete, a better person, you know, mentally for sure.
Yeah.
Your boys, I'm not gonna lie. I'm sorry to do this to you.
Go ahead, brother. No worries. But yeah, no, that's crazy. Like to me, like just in regards to like you know, you reach like the UFC, and then now like you're not in the UFC, but like, do you want to go back? Like, is that something that's in your top of your mind?
The way I look at it now is I'm not like, I used to be so hyper focused, like I said, with the social media aspect, everything. I was so hyper focused on like I need to prove myself to be I need to be here and I'm gonna get everything I wanted. And then it was like I got to the UFC and I didn't get everything I wanted.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I kind of got away from the mindset of always like just wanting more. You know, you kind of got to just like chill out, be happy with where you're at currently, and just focus on the next thing. You know? So like if my next fight was in the UFC, like I'm not gonna push for that. You know what I mean? It is what it is. If it comes, it comes.
Yeah,
that's great. You know, I just gotta try to treat every fight now like it's another fight. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter what labels on top of it, what kind of media presence is around it. Like I look back at the fights I fought in the UFC. I genuinely think I could have won both of them, but I look back and I'm like, would I have treated this fight differently if it wasn't under the UFC banner? And most oftentimes I'm like, yeah, I probably wouldn't have put so much pressure on myself. I wouldn't have cared so much about like the media pressure, the betting lines, that, you know? So it was like, I think that whole UFC experience has like made me mature in the aspect of like not so focused on the future as much as I am like just trying to focus right now.
Yeah. So you have to get invited to the UFC. Is that how that works? Like it's kind of.
Yeah. So pretty much 2 routes into the UFC at the moment. Either you get called up on a short notice or you got to go through Contender Series. So based on, I think personally I would need like 2 more wins to get into a position to be any sort. And then I would just look at that. So it would be like, if I have the 2 wins and maybe I'm interested in going back to the UFC, I would just stay ready in case a short notice opportunity comes about. Where it's like right now, I'm not, even with them coming in November, if the UFC called me to fight short notice, I'd probably just turn it down, honestly, just because I don't feel ready. You know what I mean? I don't feel like I'm in that position mentally or physically at the moment to go there and compete with the best in the world. So only being 26, that was another thing throughout my career. Is like, I was always like just trying to rush everything. I got to get in the UFC. I got to be the youngest person to do this, youngest person to do that. But everybody's route to glory is different, right? So I try to just slow everything down now. I'm still only 26. Most people don't even get in by this age, right? So I think I'm in a good position where I'm at. I'm 26, 2-fight win streak. And I think another 2 fights, another 6 months, we could be talking like, oh, maybe I'm back in the UFC. Maybe I'm in the PFL tournament. You know, so it's like, that's what I mean. Things can switch around. There's just like, just before Contender Series, it was like, so I went from fighting on a local show in my hometown to, okay, now you're the first Canadian ever to win Contender Series in such a short period of time. Like with this sport, your life can just change in the flash, man.
Do you feel even now, like kind of knowing the business more, it's a lot easier to navigate?
Yeah, 100%. So for me, I look at things differently now. I don't always look like, I used to like look at it almost like from like a fame standpoint, like, oh, so many people are going to recognize me as this fighter, that fighter. I'm like, I just got to internalize everything and just think about me. You know what I mean? I'm trying to just like shut off the outside noise and, okay, who's going to pay me more? You know what I mean? I think about stuff like this because I'm getting older now, you know, and eventually at some point fighting's not going to be there. I want to be able to pay. I want to be able to go on a trip. I want to be able to go, you know what I mean? Have some balance in my life. I've been a professional now for like 9.5 years, and I'm only 26. So it's like, I've been doing this so long where it's like, I would like to start reaping some benefits from the sport instead of just beating the shit out of myself all the time. And, you know, mentally, physically, and slowing myself down possibly from other opportunities. So that's why the PFL opportunity, if it ever comes in the future, is very intriguing to me because it's like, they pay far better. The opportunity of winning $1 million, like you win that tournament once or twice, like you don't even got to fight anymore, man. Depending on what you're doing. Like, and then if I ask like any other professional, even myself, man, I watch PFL all the time. I couldn't name you every PFL. I can name you every $1 million winner, but they're chilling somewhere with $1 million. You know what I mean? So it's like, that's what I'm trying to say, where it's like, it don't even matter. Like, what, you just want to be famous. You want to make a life for yourself. What do you want out of this sport? So I've revised how I look at the sport in terms of, okay, I'm not just trying to be the most viral fighter. I'm not trying to get the most clicks on Instagram. I don't really care about that anymore.
Even to being a fighter, like people don't really realize how much camps are, how much trainers are. Like, how do you keep it afloat? Like,
so just barbering, really. So I've been cutting hair since I've been 15, luckily. So honestly, without cutting hair, without barbering, I wouldn't have been able to compete at the level I compete at, because that's always kept me afloat as far as money wise. Even though like I'm not like, it's like just keeping me level, you know, I'm not getting rich off it. It's just basically paying for my habit of, you know, wanting to fight.
Whip some ass, knock some noses out.
Yeah. Like at the end of the day, fighting's a net negative like sport for most people, you know, like whether you drive all the time, you know, like I put probably 40,000 kilometers on my car a year, if not more sometimes, you know, and gas money, you know, insurance, like all this stuff, gear for fighting, time alone, you know what I mean? So it's just, the barbering really just kept me level, being able to make my own schedule all the time, and then work around training. I have a really cool setup now, actually, at the gym. I train at Windsor, so I have my own barber station at the gym.
That's
so
sick.
That's sick.
It was like, honestly, like I finally figured out the code, because it was like I was always renting chairs at barbershops. It was cool, you know, like made good money like that. But now it's like I'll literally be cutting someone's hair, go teach a class, get a training session in, and then go back to cutting hair. So it's like just rotation at one spot. So it worked out perfect.
What got you into cutting hair?
So I was like younger, just like super obsessed with like going to the barbershop and just getting my hair cut. I just loved the feeling.
Out,
yeah, like almost every week. And I was like 14 at the time. I shouldn't have been going every week, you know what I mean? But it was just it was cool. And then my barber was like, you got an eye for it, you know, because like I'd be watching constant YouTube videos like, oh, what's the style right now, you know, like what's a good fade look like, what's a shitty fade look like. He's like, you got a good eye for it, and he's like, you should just buy a cheap pair of clippers and just start practicing on your boys. And then that was it. I just bought like you know, a cheap pair of clippers and started practicing on the boys, and obviously I was just begging people to get haircuts honestly at the beginning, and then eventually I started being able to actually cut hair like to like a shop quality. I knew one guy who owned a shop, just hit him up. He's like, yeah, come on by. And then that was it.
Yeah, that's funny. My brother's a barber, and like I was like the first like haircut too. So you know, fucked up fade, crazy design at first, right?
Yeah,
but then like I love to see the progress of like, okay, now he's like a really good like fader and stuff.
Yeah.
But, like I was his like practice dummy back in the day.
It's cool, man, because like barbering, like especially in Canada, we don't have like official barber schools. We have hairstyling class like school.
Marvel.
Some dumb shit like that. Yeah, and they so self-taught barbers. In Canada, that's all there is really, is self-taught YouTube barbers, and they tend to be the best at cutting hair for the most part. You know, I cut, like, it's funny you mentioned that, because the first guy I ever did a haircut on actually cut today, and that's like over 10 years later.
That's sick.
So it's pretty cool.
Yeah. I also know like your little brother fights as well, right?
Yeah.
Like, is that something like he looked up to you the whole time, and like how does it feel having your younger brother in the fighting cage as well?
It's pretty cool. Like I can't really speak for it if he like looked up to me or not. We started at the exact same time.
Oh,
right?
really?
So like he kind of just tagged along, and like,
what's the age difference?
It's only a year. Even though he looks far young.
Yeah. So still look up though. Come on.
Yeah. Like just like a little over a year. He's 25 now. I'm about to be 27. But he's killing it, you know what I mean? So I think as far as Canadians go right now, even though he didn't get signed to the UFC, he signed with a major organization in Japan. I think he's probably the most potential Canadian wise at the moment for somebody who could be like a world champion, you know what I mean? So I think like I've seen him train with like world class people and just like tool them, you know what I mean? So it's like I know what the potential is there. He's got the craziness in him too, to where it's like you got to be dumb enough to do stuff like this sometimes, where it's like I feel like even sometimes I find myself over analyzing situations, and I'm like, I should just be like, fuck it, you know, I wish I was stupid enough not to think about this. You know, and I think he's got that. So I think he's got like a perfect combination of you know, crazy athletic ability. And
have you cornered him yet?
Yeah, so we've fought on the same card a few times. Like I was usually on the card above him, so I would never corner him. But his last few fights, I cornered him, and it's
how's that feel? Being on like the opposite.
It's more nervous. I'm way more nervous for his fights than my own, because I'm not really in control in any way, right? So it's like when you're going into your own fight, you're like, all right, well, you know, I got this. You know what I mean? You hopefully think like that, you know? But in a fight like that, it's like I can't do anything for him. He's just gotta, you know, listen, and hopefully he does his thing, you know. But it's gotten easier. It just depends on the level of fight. You never know. Like his last 2 fights were only 30 seconds.
I know. He's just smashing. Telling everybody, he's like, give me a target. Smash it up.
Especially at that weight class, like people aren't putting people down like that. You know what I mean? So he's only 125. Like that's the weight class he's at. So it's like, I think he's got something special when it comes to that weight class, you know, and people haven't even needed to see his grappling ability. Like this guy was on the Canadian national team for wrestling as a cadet. Could have most likely made the Olympics. You know what I mean? Like at that time, he was like easily the most like sought after prospect as far as wrestling. In that time, he was beating guys who are on the Canadian national team now, you know, so his men's national team. So he has a whole facet of his game that people haven't even gotten to see yet. So I think he's gonna crush it, man.
That's fire. Yeah. Even too, does that give you more of a drive to be like that guy? Because like you already kind of set the standard for him. It's like you're UFC. I made it to the UFC, which is, as I said, the Olympics for most people. So now when he gets to see that, it's like a target.
Yeah.
Do you think you have that energy to keep up and be like, yeah, you got to keep chasing me?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like especially now where it's like now he's in the bigger organization and I'm not, you know what I mean? He's making more money than me for his fights now. So it's like, you know, I'm very proud of him though. Like I would never be like envious in any way. So I think he deserves what he's getting, you know. I think he deserves more. So I don't really feel the need to like outbeat him. I mean, if we're training and stuff like that, as we've gotten older, it's been less competitive and more like, you know what I mean? Like if I give him advice, he listens versus like, oh, fuck you. You know what I mean? Like, so it's like, it's definitely changed as we've gotten older. So it's not so competitive anymore, especially because like there's like a 2 weight class difference. Right. So it's like, I don't really train with him. We'll drill and stuff, but as far as like sparring and stuff, it's kind of pointless. I'll never spar with a guy like as small as him, you know. Never get in a fight with a guy. I'm usually the shorter guy myself, so he's gonna kill it, man.
I was gonna ask that because I have 4 brothers. I'm like, do you guys ever scrapped? You guys like back in the day, you guys ever?
We did when we were kids, man, for sure. A few times, like for real, and. But yeah, that was it. Lately, not really.
The older brother always says it like that. It's like,
the older brother.
You already know.
No, he's definitely dangerous, man. Like that's for sure. Like I said, he's got that crazy, and I just feel bad for people. Like I've seen it happen. Like whatever when we've been out or something, you know. Like nobody who doesn't know anything about fighting would be scared of him. You know what I mean? You look at him, you wouldn't be scared of him. He's like 5'2", like and like. You know what I mean? Not intimidating in any way, you know? So it's just like, I've seen a couple times where it's just like, damn, bro.
Fucked around with the wrong person. Right?
Like you fucked up, you know what I mean? Like couple beers too many and you thought you were some. So
yeah. It's crazy how like that's one sport where like you can't like see like with your eyes that they're lethal.
No.
You know what I mean? Like they can do damage. You don't
There's
see
like,
that.
the only way is like, okay, somebody's got cauliflower ear or something like that, maybe.
Yeah.
Well, even too, it's for you. You got the half and half, which is crazy.
Yeah.
You got the right one, nothing. The other one.
Yeah.
It's
and my brother's got nothing. Got no bad ears.
Yeah, because like anytime I see someone with cauliflower, it's like, yeah. What do we say, bud?
Yeah.
Right? But with you got the 50-50. Do you kind of know why that kind of happened?
Oh, well, just from being dominant sided in wrestling.
Okay,
like,
so you're just
always like hitting the hip on this side.
Okay.
I've had that since I was like in high school, pretty much.
Okay.
Yeah. It's ugly, bro. I don't know why people want this. You know?
I don't know. It's pretty intimidating. It's kind of like a battle scar. You know, you got a big slash on your face. Like nobody wants that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll take us through your favorite fight that you performed. Like one of like the ones that you felt like maybe you've overcame yourself.
My favorite fight, I would say. So I had a fight with this guy named from the U.S. His name is Jimmy Spacuzza. He was I was only 20 at the time, and he was really good. Pretty good. And I was coming off a loss, like my first like real legit L. Because the first time I had ever lost in MMA was just a crazy split decision.
Split.
Yeah, it was just ridiculous. Especially when like the other corner's coming up to you and they're like, "Yo, like we don't know." Like how that happened. And same with the commentary. It was like whatever. It didn't even matter. I was like 18, so whatever. But there's anyways coming off my first legit L. So I fought Jamie Spacuzza, and it was like I just remember walking out to that fight and just being like, let it happen. You know what I mean? Just like let go and just like whatever happens. Win, lose, draw. Just go out there and just do your thing. And I felt like it was like a very well put together performance. And I ended up like winning by submission in the 3rd round. But the longer fights I've had, where especially if I have a longer fight where I end up getting a finish in the end, it's like I get so much cage time and like experience in those fights, and still get be able to say I finished the fight too. Mm-hmm. So like that fight was really like stuck out in my head. And then I fought this Brazilian guy too. I defended a belt in TKO, which used to be the biggest organization in Canada. And I was defending my belt in TKO, and I was fighting a Brazilian guy who was 25-6, and he was on a 13-fight win streak. And like I called for that fight because I felt it was a really good matchup and for me. And so called for that fight. Again, it was like a 5-round, went all 5 rounds, finished him in the last round. And I felt like, again, that was another fight where it was like everything just, I don't even remember, like, I didn't think about the fight. You know what I mean? It was just, everything just like flowed out. It was nice.
Yeah. Take us through, what's a 5-round really feel like? Is there something so paced out where you have to kind of breathe it out, kind of worry about it, or like what is it?
So I think this is the way I try to look at them now. And it was like a guy named Darren Cruikshank who used to be in the UFC, like kind of always reminded me of this is like, don't really worry about the pace too much. You know what I mean? Because you get that minute rest in between rounds. Like if you're in a good enough position, good enough shape, that minute rest should be enough for you to be able to go out and perform in the next round, you know? So I try to think about it in that sense, because there was a couple that I've had for at least one 5-round fight where I felt like I paced myself too much and it got me in trouble, you know, because I was more focused on the pace of the fight than I was actually doing what I needed to do that round. And so, yeah, the 5 rounds, I think, doesn't really matter too much.
Yeah. How did your days look like, I guess, like pre-fight? What are you doing like to get yourself ready?
So I try to, like, my week is always a little mixed, because especially right now I'm traveling. Like I do half my week in Windsor, half my week in Oakville. So I train at a few different gyms, but always just trying to mix it up with just striking, grappling. You know, we got a lot of good guys to train with in both Windsor and up in the GTA area. So yeah, I'll try to get at least probably like 3 to 4 grappling sessions a week. I'd like to spar twice a week, preferably. And sometimes even 3 if like one day is a little bit lighter. Outside of like a training camp, I maybe spar once a week. Sometimes I hold off on sparring altogether, just depending how I'm feeling. And then I'll do like strength conditioning a couple times a week. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Striking like probably 4 or 5 times a week. You know what I mean? I feel like striking's a little less taxing on the body than like a good hard grappling session or like a strength conditioning session or anything like that. So yeah, that's pretty much like an average week for me.
Yeah. And are you running a lot? Like,
oh yeah, I run pretty much especially when I'm like training for a fight, like cutting weight, I run every night. And like running for me, like I'll usually run between like 5 and 8K a night. And it's just, I don't really do that for the fight itself. I do that just for weight loss, and it's really good for my mental. Like whenever I just running at night, it's just you and the street, you know what I mean? Everything's kind of quiet and dead, and it's just you're listening to music, just thinking about the fight.
Yeah.
And it's just it's like a therapeutic time for me, honestly. Like I don't hate running. Like obviously I don't, like doing it every day gets taxing for sure, but like it's for sure therapeutic, because like I'm not trying to hit a pace. I'm just out there just running, you know?
Yeah.
So.
What's your go-to song? What are you listening to?
It's always different, man. Like I have some country songs that get me hyped up.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
okay.
But then I'll have like Back in Blood with Pooh Shiesty, you know.
Let's go.
So stuff like that too. So it's like my playlist is like super versatile in that sense.
Yeah.
And what do you look at like the next couple of years coming on forward? Like, what's TJ's journey?
So if everything goes perfect, we'll get at least minimum 1 fight in this year.
Yeah, the November one.
And then hopefully, I personally want to take a little vacation, like just go away for a week or 2. Just because since I've had a real vacation, it's been years. So just kind of reset. And then I would like 3 fights next year, whether, I don't know. I think I need probably 2 more overall, 2 to 3 more before I get looked at again for a major organization. And yeah, go from there. I mean, I think in a year's time, 6 months' time, like it could be a whole different conversation. You know what I mean? I think we could be talking about back in the UFC or, you know, PFL tournament or something like that. So I'm pretty excited, honestly. I have actually a jiu-jitsu competition in London this Sunday. There's a
really?
Say word.
Yeah,
No way.
There's a London Open. I don't know.
Saunders?
I'm not sure where it's at actually,
Okay.
but it's a pretty big tournament. So I mean, there's only one guy my weight, so but it's just so I'll get 1 match in. I just like, since I had shoulder surgery in March, I only competed 1 time, so I just kind of want to get a little competition in before I fight again, you know.
Yeah, that's crazy. How's it feel? Like, well, even too, let's leave that. We don't want to expose nothing on that.
No, it's all good. There ain't my shoulder's 100%. So it was just like a bicep tenotomy, which is like they just cut the bicep long head. It drops down a little bit and it scars into your bicep. So they didn't even have to reattach it, which I thought was pretty crazy.
Mhm.
But yeah, zero. Honestly, other than like stretched out in a couple positions, I feel great. Like power wise, same, speed's the same, endurance is the same. So just.
So be worried.
Yeah. I'm back to
I'm coming
100.
for it.
I did my last 2 fights with that injury, so is I don't know. I won some fights with it. So
yeah, exactly.
Would you say like the little kid version of you? Would you be proud of the man you are today?
Sorry.
Yeah, no, don't worry, bro.
No,
Take
bro.
your time, bro. Like, I know that like that question must have hit, you know.
Even too, it's like you've been a lot. You've been a warrior through like
literally
your
a
whole life.
warrior.
Like even too,
Literally.
That's the one thing I'll give a lot of credit. Is like I want to always say it's like it's in the bloodline. You guys are straight warriors.
None of us could say that we understand like what you have gone through, because that would be complete bullshit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So don't worry about that, brother.
So honestly, like in some ways yes, in some ways no, because obviously the younger version of myself didn't have the experience I have now.
Yeah.
So I would be looking at it from a different light, in the sense where it's like oh, you know, like, oh, just toughen up, you know what I mean? Get through it, you know, but until you experience certain moments, you don't really know how you're going to react in that time. So I feel like personally for me, like, I think I'm pretty much right where I'm supposed to be at the moment. You know what I mean? Yeah. Especially like younger me would always be like, oh, you know, you didn't do enough. You know what I mean? I still fall like victim to that mindset a lot, where it's like, I'm not doing enough. I'm not progressing fast enough, you know? So I think it's a blessing and a curse, you know, in the sense where it's like, you're always going to feel like inadequate to what you're accomplishing or what you're doing at the time. But right now, yeah, like I'm pretty happy where I'm at. I think if the younger version of me knew the stuff I know now, you know what I mean? He'd be like, all right, you're doing okay. You know?
Yeah. It seems like there's still a lot of fight in you though.
Oh, yeah.
It seems like that's still there though.
The dog's still,
you know what I mean?
Like, so I think one thing in my life for sure is like, just based on like what I come from my childhood and stuff like that, is like, I think success is mandatory, you know, regardless if it's going to be in a business aspect or it's going to be fighting. I think it's I can't just like live a normal life, you know what I mean? Even though normal life sounds like fucking awesome sometimes, you know, just like get home from work, you know, you got your schedule, you're doing this stuff, but at the same time I couldn't be like a clock in, clock out guy, you know what I mean? So I think success is like gonna happen regardless of where I end up in life. I think the one thing I got to do is slow down a little bit, as far as again, always feeling like I'm not doing enough, I'm not doing this, I'm not getting it done fast enough, you know what I mean? I should be here. I've tried to bring all that back in and just like reevaluate. And there are times where it's like, there's been times where it's like, oh, you know, like, should I fight in the next few months? And I'll be like, no, just give myself a little bit more time. Like originally when I was coming off surgery, I had my surgery very end of March. So like, let's just say beginning of April. And I was like wanting to fight in like August, you know what I mean? So it's like, that's like only 4 months post surgery, you know?
Yeah.
So it was like, so I was just trying to slow down in that sense. And yeah, you know, so yeah, I think younger me would, if he knew what I knew, would be okay.
You think that's why your name is The Truth?
So honestly, my coach just gave me that name before I left to Japan, because like the Japanese crowd, like, so Japanese pro wrestling is really big in Japan, and they love that, like, you know what I mean, that weird like superhero shit, you know?
Yeah, too, like you spoke it, it's like you did that right there, that was the truth.
Yeah,
so, you know, the name fits.
Yeah, you know, so I try to be like, that's one thing, like I feel like if you got to be real with yourself at all times. You know what I mean? I feel like sometimes maybe I don't give myself enough credit for things I've been able to do and accomplish, but you know, it's just things I'm working on. You know what I mean? Like I feel like everybody's got something, you know, whether it's some sort of crutch, you know? So for me, I'm just trying to get better at, you know, stopping and smelling the roses a little bit, appreciating where I'm at, and where I've come from.
Yeah.
And stuff
and yo, like we're like a few years older than you, right? So like to hear you say that with like such confidence, like that maturity, it just goes to show like how much passion and like actual respect you have for yourself. Like, you know what I mean? And like that's like a big stepping stone. So like I can't even imagine the monster that comes out of this. You know what I mean? Like, because like that's what it takes though, is actually like some like perspective on like analyzing your situation, analyzing yourself, bro, before like you really put yourself fully out there, right?
Yeah.
So like that I'm like that's big. Like I could tell you're passionate and you're not done. You know what I mean? And like I said, we're a little older. We're old heads here.
Yeah. we're 2 years older, and even that, it's like, what? This guy's done this, everything.
Yeah, like you've done a lot.
At the end of the day, you can always say #1 Contender Series out of Canada, everything like that, and you're still not done.
Yeah, and that's I could see that, bro.
I honestly feel like I felt like at the time when I was getting released from the UFC, it was weird because it felt like a weight was lifted off my shoulders in the sense where it was like now I finally got the time to like kind of sit back and like progress and like, you know what I mean? Yeah. And like actually like look into like what's going on with my head, you know what I mean? Like, why am I feeling this way? Why, like, so I was able to kind of like revitalize like everything, my whole love fighting again, you know what I mean? Love competing again and not always feeling stressed out and like dreading going to the gym and, you know, dreading going on my phone. Like I didn't even want to watch like UFC for a while. I was just like, I'm tired of this shit. You know what I mean? So it was like, it feels nice to be able to like, you know, enjoy some fights and stuff like that.
That must have been crazy, right? Like that whole like being attacked, right? It's like, you're my money line, everything like that.
Yeah, it's like, just weird.
You're the Canadian hero, they would say.
Yeah.
And they're like, it's definitely like.
Yeah, man. Until you really experience that, like everyone's like, oh, just turn off your phone. Bro, like you got the world at your fingertips every time you pick up your phone. You know what I mean? So it's like, come on, don't give me that. Until you've experienced it, you really don't know. Oh, just shut it out. All right, you try. Man.
Yeah, literally.
Like I see people that like, bro, they cut you off in traffic, you're having a meltdown. You know what I mean? Imagine every time you picked up your phone. Yeah. Like, come on.
Yeah. No, 100%. I get that, bro.
Damn,
it's like the same time. Like we were at the casino the other day, and like I still won $100, but I was up like $200, and I was like, "Fuck, I lost $100." Yeah. But it's like, no, you still won $100. Like, why are you focusing so much on the negative, right? So it's kind of like it applies similar to like social media, right? It's like that one negative comment, all of a sudden it's just like it's so loud, compared to all the good like comments and messages, right? It's just natural. I think
it's why Rogan says post and ghost, right? Because like all the stupid shit's gonna mean more to you than all the good shit, right? And we hear it firsthand from somebody who's like, you know, did everything.
Yeah. Man, it's but I mean, you got to experience it a little bit, I feel like, to grow from that. You know, some people just have it naturally. They're like, I see my brother look at like, because he recently had a somewhat viral video of him like talking shit on the mic after his fight.
Well, was it the one where he's like, I'll kill everyone?
Yeah, basically.
Like the Hamza, he was kind of like Hamza. He's just like, what'd he say? He's like, yeah,
I touch you, you go to sleep.
Yeah.
That's what people kept talking shit about that. They're like, oh, what is this guy, like a pedophile or something like that? And then like, just there was like over 100 comments on it. Just most of them were talking shit. And he just like looks at it and laughs. I'm like, damn, man. I'm like, some people really do just got like, they don't really care. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%.
But
even to not to take away from like, I just seen him post the other day. He's like, you like ice cream, whatever. He just, he's a funny guy. I'll get it to him. He just doesn't like, I don't know.
He don't care, man. That's the thing. He just, whatever he feels like doing, he's going to do it.
Yeah. See, and that's, as I said, it's like warrior blood. You boys definitely both have it, right? It definitely comes from, you know, whatever you guys went through. Even to like to have somebody there with you, like, you know what? Still a generational like monsters.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
for sure. Nobody can say that both the brothers are gonna do that.
Yeah. So I think I honestly think like just I always try to remind myself like everything that's happened in growing up and stuff, like whatever, family members passing away and stuff like that. It's like, okay, my brother had to deal with all that too. Mm-hmm. So it was like I try to remind myself of that, so it makes me respect like him a lot more too, you know.
Yeah. At the end of the day, like you said, everyone has their own route, bro, and you know, like everyone's given their own journey.
Yeah.
Right? And 100%. As long as you embrace that and you push forward, bro, which you clearly are, like you're about to, I can tell, bro. I want to see your next fight in person. I want to fucking be there with this guy.
Is it?
Hopefully November 16th in Niagara.
Bro,
oh, yo, yes,
we want to come 100%, bro.
When I officially get news on it, I'll
let us know, bro. We'll fucking be there, bro. I'm telling you right now, bro.
We have to. That'd be. I love that fucking shit. I love to see people get knocked out. I love it. So.
Yeah, but no, is there anything else I guess you want to tell our audience or anything else you want to like get off your chest there?
Perhaps anything.
I mean, no, just honestly, like thank you to everybody who's been helping me train for my fights the last little bit. I know we were supposed to fight in September. It didn't really work out, but thanks to the promotions and everyone that's been working to get me back to where I should be. And thank you guys for having me on the podcast.
Of course, bro.
No, man, it was beautiful. We'll definitely have you back on like after the next fight. And
yeah, for sure.
We're back at it.
Yeah. No, thank you for taking the time too, brother. Name of the barbershop.
So it's actually at my gym in Windsor, Ontario, MTC Windsor. The barbershop's there. If you want to check me out on Instagram and book, just go to my barber page, TJ Laramie 81.
Let's go.
We'll plug that all in. You guys know.
Yeah. But no, brother, honestly, thanks for taking the time to stop by, you know, out here in London. And like you said, we'll have you back. And I want to go to the fight in November.
Yeah,
I want to go.
For sure. As soon as it gets announced, as soon as I know about it, I'll let you guys know.
All right. And, for all you guys watching, thank you guys so much. You know, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. And another banger episode. You guys are going to love this one. And that's it. Peace.